Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Jim Mallory with E2B Technologies. I'm joined today with Diane Cochran of Molded Fiberglass. And we're going to talk today about a specific topic that's near and dear to many of you on the call today, and that is your cost updates and cost roll-ups and changes to your manufacturing work center rates with MAS 500. And we're going to talk about how Molded Fiberglass uses our cost modeling application to make that process a little bit easier. We're going to start off by talking a little bit about Molded Fiberglass, give you a little background on them, talk specifically about the cost modeling application, have some questions with Diane, and then kind of wrap it up talking about some of the other things that they use from E2B, and answer any questions you might have at the end. So let's get started. A little bit about Molded Fiberglass. MFG was founded in 1948, so they've been around a really long time in Ashtabula, Ohio, not far from our offices here. And they're an international leader in the field of composites manufacturing, or what's known as fiberglass reinforced composites, or the fiberglass reinforced composites, right? They're privately owned and managed. They have 16 facilities throughout the United States and Mexico, and we have their address here. And as we walk through, you're going to see that they do a lot of really cool things with fiberglass. Long and storied history. We did a success story on them not too long ago, and this is kind of the cover page to this. This gives you kind of an idea of the different types of products that they manufacture. Everything from giant radomes that house salt and different things, parts for automotive and heavy truck industries, giant windmill nacelles and blades, and all kinds of different products that they make. So we'll look at kind of where they came from. Their kind of watershed moment, they had a couple of them in their history, but the one was in 1953 when Chevrolet commissioned them to make the first fiberglass reinforced automobile body for their Chevy Corvette. And then in 1954, they were approached by the Lyman Boat Company with a proposal to produce boats. And I mean, at least around here in Ohio, you still see MFG boats in people's yards or for sale, and they're out there, and they were really, really durable. My parents owned one back in the 80s, so very iconic from that standpoint. In 1965, they expanded their boat product line by acquiring the Crestliner boat brand, and a lot of folks recognized that brand, as well as the Kingfisher model rowboat, which I had owned one of those back in the days as well, and that was sold through Sears Roebuck and Company. So very, very well known there. Couple other icons. Unfortunately, Wonder Bread is no longer with us, but for years MFG was the, I think, only manufacturer of basically the trays that Wonder Bread used for their product. They also manufactured the first Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. Again, a little bit of Americana there. As you can imagine, their business has changed as industry has changed throughout the years. Today, they're an international leader in many different industries. Two of the big ones for them is heavy truck and automotive, which remains a huge part of their business. The other area is around wind energy, and we're seeing wind farms go up all over the country, and they manufacture the nacelles, which are really the center part of the hub for those units, as well as the blades. And one of the companies that we talked about, they have 16 different companies, was Molded Fiberglass South Dakota. And South Dakota was kind of interesting, at least from our perspective, because there really was no plant there, and then they landed a large contract with General Electric, and within 1 year, they basically took an empty lot to a full production facility manufacturing these huge blades, supplying this new wind farm up in South Dakota, and went to over, I think it was 700 employees. Was that, I think that's right, Diane, 700 employees in the first year or two?
Yeah, we're down though.
Down a little bit?
Yeah.
But, you know, pretty significant. That still is, I think, one of your larger facilities out there.
Yes, it is. Area-wise, it's the largest.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool. Some of the different markets, I mean, agricultural, construction, flat sheet panels, heavy truck, I mentioned, HVAC, lighting, material handling, military and defense contracts, rail transportation, recreational vehicles. I mean, their customer list is really like a who's who of the industry. I mean, you got Freightliner, you know, Daimler Chrysler, you've got Caterpillar, you've got Chevrolet. So a lot of very large companies, General Electric. So really good company to work with here. Let's talk a little bit about how they're using our Anytime 500 products. These are the products that we've developed specifically around the Sage 500, formerly Mass 500 ERP product line. And one of them that they've used kind of religiously throughout the organization is cost modeling. So we'll give you a little background on what cost modeling is, and then we're going to talk a little bit with Diane about how they use it internally and some of the benefits they've seen. The cost modeling application is part of our Anytime 500 suite, and what that basically does is extends the Sage 500 ERP inventory and manufacturing modules with new features to help distributors and manufacturers to effectively manage their inventory and manufacturing operations. Now, cost modeling was specifically designed really for a couple things. One is, if I'm using standard cost and I go to update my standard costs, there's no way in Sage 500 to do that without affecting my live standard costs. So I really needed a way to model those costs to find out, is this in fact a change that I want to implement? And if I'm changing standard costs for a raw material, how does that affect my finished good standard cost? And then, oh, by the way, if I'm a manufacturer and I need to change my work center rates, how do I do that kind of in a what-if scenario to find out what impact those work center rates would have? And then when I'm ready to deploy the standard cost, how do I make that very easy with just a couple mouse clicks as opposed to having to go in and do this one record at a time? And then giving me the visibility into what were my standard costs from a historical standpoint and what are my future effective standard costs for these items. We're not going to go into a product overview today or for a demonstration. If you go out to our YouTube channel, we do have videos. We also have product spec sheets on the website. So we'll talk a little bit about the cost modeling here. If you're a distributor and you're on the call today and you're really only concerned about standard cost updates for the items that you buy and resell, you can use it in this manner just for your purchased item standard costs. You can also use it, as mentioned, to update work center rates. And then really the combination of those two will determine what your new standard would be for your finished good raw material, right? So I'm making cost changes to my raw materials and work center changes. Those are going to add up to my new finished good cost. It's going to help me identify what do I need to regen from a bill of material if I'm making changes to my bill of material. It allows me to manage multiple cost models, so maybe I want to look at rolling out cost changes maybe by a warehouse or different product lines, so I can really segregate how I roll out updates to my standard costs. You can also optionally tie this into the Sage module. They call it engineering change management, but what it is really approvals. So if I want to identify a cost model, send it out to maybe my cost accountants, maybe production, different folks internally to approve before I deploy it. We do have that ability to integrate that process. Implementation dates, when do I want to implement it, and then what items are going to be part of this cost model so I can actually pick the items that I'm choosing to update. And then the screen you can see over on the right really has a four-step process where it'll go out there, it'll update your standard costs from what you've defined for your purchased items, update your work center rates, it'll regenerate your finished good bill of material, and then it'll post your BOM cost roll-ups, all with clicking that one button here. So it really streamlines that process. The other thing that we mentioned is the history, right? So a lot of times I want to know what was my standard cost last year or 2 years ago, and before cost modeling, you kind of needed to like print that information or store it externally, because once you updated the standard cost, you had no visibility into the history of what the standard cost was for an item, whether it was purchased or manufactured at any given time. But we do retain that history now with the application. Okay. Some of the other features of the application, you can model this in Excel, and a lot of people do. We'll talk with Diane a little bit to find out how they do it. But Excel is very nice because you can apply different formulas, mark up, mark down, and then import that model information back into our application. Maybe you want to just do a blanket update by an amount or a percent over the current standard, or base it off of your replacement cost or your last cost. So there's a lot of options there. And then there's a report that you can run it's like an inventory valuation report that'll tell you, based on my cost model changes, how's that going to affect my inventory valuation, right? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? By how much? So again, from a cost perspective, I can identify, are these things that I do in fact want to go live with, and what are the cost implications for me, even down to even a tax standpoint, so I can make better decisions there. Again, I've got the history, I've got the ability to do the updates. I can see a cost breakout based on the different types, whether it's direct labor, indirect labor, my fixed costs, variable costs. So I can see all those elements of costing broken out. And we have this built in with the SageFinder security so that you can prevent people from getting in and making these changes when they're not authorized. Okay. So just walk you through the application a little bit. You can have multiple cost model versions, and then obviously approved for implementation, which can go through the approval process. On the purchased item screen, you would identify the items and the new standard cost. On the finished goods side, which is what we're looking at here, this is basically taking the information for the updates we've made to the standard cost, those that are already existing in the application, as well as any changes to our work center rates, and it's going to calculate then what are our new standards for our finished goods. From a cost model entry standpoint, we have this other screen here at the bottom. This is where you would identify changes to your work center rates, because work center rates go up, rent increases, utilities aren't getting any cheaper, utilities keep going up, so you're going to want to adjust costs typically on an annual basis, if not more frequently. Some of the benefits, you can define obviously your new standards for your purchased items, for your manufactured items, raw materials, work centers, multiple cost model for what if scenarios, what if we increase standard costs, or if we source products from somewhere else, reduce cost, how does that affect everything? We can maintain multiple models for review, we can retain the history and review the history, and we can quickly deploy these new costs for large or small groups of inventory items, which again is something that's very difficult to do out of the box with Sage. So now we're gonna put Diane on the spot and talk a little bit more about specifically how they're using the application. So my first question for Diane is, how does MFG use cost modeling? Does that vary across the different locations and businesses?
No, we use cost modeling the same at all our entities. Corporate has a very strict policy that we only set our standards once a year. And it's a very controlled cost roll. So when we first implemented MAS 500, the only way to change your standard cost was through a cost tier adjustment. You'd have to do one item at a time, and that's on your raw materials. And then when you got to your finished goods, you have your material, labor, overhead that you're actually trying to roll up into your different levels of your bill of materials. So MAS 500 doesn't favor standard costing at all. It's more of it goes more towards actual or average. Yeah, actual or average. So that would have been a real deal breaker for us had E2B not come up with this solution of cost modeling. What we do is we use it for testing our process revisions throughout the year. If we make a change to a bill of material, we'll put it into the cost modeling to see what kind of effect it has on on the total cost. We have a template set up with all our pricing, and we extracted out the cost modeling and the new pricing and see what our profit margin is. We use it for that. Process revision, sometimes if they're customer driven, of course we have no choice, and we want to see what the effect's going to be. But if it's a choice that maybe manufacturing saying we want to add a process, or we want to add a person, or we want to change the work center, we want to see what kind of effect it's going to have on our profit. So we use the cost modeling for that purpose.
Yeah, so let's go on. That's quite impressive. I didn't even think about it. So it's really even helping you drive your decisions on potentially price changes on the products as well.
Right. We have a very controlled procedure for cost rolls. It's done at the end of our fiscal year, actually a month before the end of the fiscal year, and it's got to go through a approval process all the way through to the corporate level, because we have a lot of negotiations with our suppliers on pricing. We want to make sure everybody's using the correct standard cost. In a standard cost system, you want to set your bar to what it really actually is, so that you can make decisions throughout the year as far as, are we hitting that bar, are we over that bar, or are we under that bar? So it helps to do before the cost modeling, we would have had to do one item at a time. We have, 2 of our entities have over 4,000 items. 2,000 of those are probably finished goods with probably 12 levels. What you would have to do is roll your raw materials first, one item at a time, for each entity. So you're looking at 8,000 just for 2 of the entities. It was a near impossibility. I mean, we couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So cost modeling came in and saved the day.
That was the process before, which really was no process.
No, it was like I said, it would have been a deal breaker. We would have had to find some different software.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the way that works.
Okay. And then benefits. Obviously time savings, but I mean,
huge.
Other things.
The time savings is the biggest. And like I said, we can actually go in there and set up cost models for our work center changes. If we have a standard labor rate and we're making a decision whether we want to up it or take it down, what impact is that going to have on the bottom line? So we use it for that. We don't. It's a very strict standard cost policy that corporate has implemented so that we don't have people going in there. There's a tight security on that. There's only myself and another person that have access to change standard costs, unless there's some act of God that tells us that, you know, we really need to go in. This bill was set up completely wrong. Then we'll go in and change it. So once a year, I have to do 16 companies. Well, actually 15. One's a service company, and they don't have any materials. So I can do all of that, 16 companies. 2 of them, like I said, have about 4,000 items. The other companies have anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 items apiece, and I can do all of those companies within 3 days. So I pick a weekend. What used to take us, even on our old system that had an automated, somewhat automated system, it would take us 2 weeks probably to do all the entities. Plus you're looking at all the prep time too, and that's another thing that cost modeling does. You can pull in your all your raw materials and look at your last cost. What did I last pay for that material? And then you have the ability to pull that out into Excel and actually look at it to make sure that that last cost is what you truly paid, because maybe it's a prototype and you paid $90 instead of $15 per bolt.
Right.
Just to have it designed. So, you know, you have the ability to review all of that. So there's a little bit of prep work to do, but once you push that button, it takes, for the largest company, I think it's never taken us over 2 hours.
And that's a lot of transactions.
That's a lot of regenerating, and that's a lot of, and that goes all the way through and posts directly to the GL. So you don't have to make any journal entries. You don't have to do any
inventory adjustments.
No, it does everything for you, and it's great.
Excellent. So that's cost modeling, and hopefully you guys on the phone today, if you don't have it, you're going to take a look at it, especially if you're standard cost or if you're considering going to standard cost. My other question for Diane, because I know they use a lot of our other products, is maybe she could give us an overview kind of how they're using some of these other products that are available within our Anytime 500 product suite.
Well, we use the enhanced labor entry because we do manual labor entry right now so that we can get our actual costs versus our standard costs. So you have to have your labor is a big part of that, especially like in the wind energy. That's all labor-intensive work. It's not machine work. So we use the labor entry because we can do huge batches of 200 or 300 people in one batch and post it without going in and out one at a time. We use the enhanced MRP, of course, in EDI. North Carolina, you know, North Carolina uses the the EDI through MRP.
Yeah. So those of you on the call, they're molded fiberglass North Carolina. They're big customers, Freightliner or Daimler Chrysler, and what they do is they'll get releases in from Daimler Chrysler. It's an 830 document, the EDI, that basically has a planning forecast in on the parts that they need to produce for Daimler. Then they'll firm some of those periods up, and others will be more of a forecast. Well, obviously, I mean, that being a huge account for them, they need to know, what do I need to produce? And I think they're even getting it down to like an 862 with the VIN numbers, so they know the VIN sequence of these cabs that they're producing and what order they need to.
It's line sequenced, so the orders come in line sequenced and they go out to the supplier in line sequence.
Yep. So when they take them off the truck, they're in order, ready for processes there.
And then once again, the global bill of material replacement, they use that also because those bill of materials it's a custom cab, interior cab, so the bill of material comes in and they have to make changes globally.
Across multiple bills.
Multiple bills, right. And so we use that a lot. Sales forecasting, of course, and we're going to be using sales forecasting a lot more now that we're getting into a proprietary product that we maybe won't necessarily have orders for, but we'll need, lead times on some of our materials, so we'll need to use sales forecasting just to see
what the demand would
be. The demand, to generate the demand. Shop floor control is a new product that E2B built just specifically for us. I don't know if it's on the market or not, but
not yet.
It's actually where people go out on the floor, they scan into a work order, and they scan out of the work order, and then we just import all of the labor entry right into labor entry batches and post it. So we went from one person doing 8 hours of data entry with you could make mistakes when you do 8 hours of data entry, to actually importing, just reviewing and posting. So we went from 8 hours down to 2 hours a day, and that's including all the reports that management asks for after production has been entered. So that's a great thing. We have it implemented in our South Dakota plant, and we're taking it to 2 other plants that I know of right now, and possibly 2 more.
Excellent. Excellent. So we're going to wrap up, I think, with questions, unless Diane has any parting thoughts.
No.
So let's go ahead and open it up for questions. We're going to use the Q&A panel. So if you want to just enter some questions in here, looks like we have one. This is nice. Somebody's asking if we're going to be at Sage Summit next month. We absolutely will be there. Diane will be there as well. So if you want to track us down, we can have some lunch and talk all about the fun world of cost modeling, Sage 500. Yes, we will be exhibiting there. We have a trade show booth. I don't know the number offhand, but we'll be in the exhibitor guide. See if we have any other questions. While we wait for any other questions to come in, I do have my contact information on the screen. We did also do a success story on molded fiberglass, and I've got the link here. This presentation is being recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel, so if you would like to share it with a colleague maybe somebody in your organization that's responsible for standard costs. We'd certainly appreciate you getting this information to them. Let's see if we have any other questions here. We don't. So I think we're going to conclude the webinar.
And you are welcome to contact James, so he can give you my contact information, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, it's we do a lot of that with our customers as well. We do have several of our customers that are on the call today. You know, help you network with each other, bounce some ideas off each other. I mean, everybody knows a little bit different things, or they've implemented Mass 500 maybe a little different way, or they found some different third-party solutions that might fit. So we definitely encourage that. We have a lot of fantastic customers, just like Molded Fiberglass, and a number of you are on the call today. So we have no more questions. I'd like to thank Diane for taking time out, and the rest of you, and we will see you all at Sage Summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.